The problem is with intelligent design is to take a look at complexity and say, hey, complexity therefore equals design. But on the same token of things, if the world that we lived in was one of simplicity, that would also be an indication of design. So by saying that both these categories cover what we would expect from design, that really it almost becomes a meaningless topic to talk about, because we actually have no clear qualifiers of what this inference to design would be.
Right, but the thing is, I didn't quite understand where J.D. Keane was coming from. He said something to the effect of, this is an atrocious design. You don't like the way things happen in the world, therefore this logically means there's no God because of that? I mean, there's a lot of things people do that totally make me sick.
That would be a terrible argument. I would never make that argument. That would be awful. No, I think it's if you look at the empirical reality we live in, it's obvious that a designer is not involved. And the people who are positing designers are presenting arguments that are atrocious. So at that point, it's just like if someone were to argue day in and day out about like the Easter Bunny is real, you could take them seriously to a point, but at some point you just say, all right, stop. This is nonsense. Let's talk about something more reasonable. And the God discussion kind of goes in a similar pattern as do other weird beliefs. In fact, if you go with evangelical Christianity, it goes in the same pattern as other conspiracy theories. Like I assume, Brett, you've talked to flat earthers before, or to diehard creationists, or to people who believe that 9/11 was a Jewish plot. So you've heard these conspiracy theories, and if you look at how creationists and Christians talk about their beliefs, not all, obviously. Fiona is an obvious exception. She's very reasonable about her beliefs and admits that it's a faith thing. But for those who say no, not faith, no, it's empirically the case that God is real, you could hear in their defenses the same kind of reasoning you hear from people we all here together agree are a bit nutty, like UFO enthusiasts, people who think that they really were kidnapped and stuff was shoved up their ass. We could hear those types of defenses that they give are the same types of defenses you hear from creationists and for people who are really gung-ho that God is empirically observable fact. So those are the reasons that I say that I know the gods are not a thing in the world. That's just nonsense. Not because that I have some special some explanation about evolution or the Big Bang or because I hate Christians or anything like that. Those would be terrible reasons to believe. And I admit that in the past I have had some bad reasons for being an atheist, but I've since shucked those off. I've learned from talking to intelligent, thoughtful people that some of the reasons I had for not believing were terrible. And I corrected that and said, no, I believe I only have good reasons for being an atheist. And I think I've gotten rid of the bad ones. But I'm still an atheist. Atheism is still the case. And the reasons for believing God are typically not very good. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. Unless I was talking to myself in here the whole time.
He said, during the middle of it, he said BRB.
Wow. Oh, well, man. Hi. I appreciate the choir then. Hi, guys.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, there's a lot of problems, I think, that from that inference from design there. But,
so you get why people make that kind of mistaken reasoning, but you also know that it is a mistaken reasoning.
Yeah. All right. Wait. You guys have fun.
Always look.
I'm out.
Yeah. Looking at religion as a natural phenomena, I think works far better than the idea that of all these religions of the world and all the bad arguments and all the commonalities between the bad arguments, that one of them is still the case. I think that's kind of, no, don't think that's the thing.
It's very quiet now.
Yep.
Misty Converse contender.
Very quiet now. Okay. I'd just like to welcome a couple of people. Montgomery.
Converse contender.
There you go.
So what about that airplane?
I love you guys. Oh my god, I love you
I'd
guys.
like to
I'm so happy.
I'd like to welcome a few.
Hey, Jackie, we miss you.
Montgomery.
I miss you too.
Sorry, I was hugging Jackie over that introduction. Sorry about that. Go ahead. You might want to say it again, Montgomery.
Oh, nothing. Sorry.
Yeah, actually, Montgomery, you're pretty quiet. I don't know. If
Also breaking up a little bit.
More quieter than me.
Is Brett still there?
Now he said he had to take care of his son real quick, so he's on BRB mode.
Right, because I'd like to ask him something when he comes back.
It is kind of fun, us pretending that we don't know Brett and the typical reasons and things he does. In a sense, we're all kind of like feigning, like, oh, really? This is a typical rational conversation with a reasonable, rational person. It's not really.
Yeah. And that's why I'd like to maybe ask him a question, and sort of burrow down into this, because I'm seeing a false dichotomy being set up, whereby if you are a Christian, you reject evolution. Or if you're a Christian, you reject abiogenesis. And that's a load of tosh. So I'd like to just dig into that a little bit.
If you're going to be an evangelical, most of them would do it, but that's not all Christians, right? It's actually the minority.
Exactly.
Except, of course, Catholics aren't real Christians, of course. Don't forget that.
Well, of course we aren't. Of course we aren't.
I just love teasing you, Fiona.
I know.
Fiona, there's a question from the live chat here for you particularly, which is, do you believe Adam was a literal person?
Nope. No, I don't. I think Adam means man. And it's humans are always attempting to find explanations for things, and they tried to find an explanation for their own existence, and they came up with that. They came up with a fable, and I don't mean fable in a derogatory sense. I mean fable as in a tale with a moral lesson. There is far too much evidence against special creation and against a young earth. And if my faith hung on just that alone, then I wouldn't have any faith, because there is too much evidence against it. So no, I don't think Adam was literally a man. I think that story talks about man, humans.
But wouldn't it still be possible to have like Adam even in, like, say, an evolutionary model that's theistic evolution?
Not if you're talking about the very particular things about what this specific man and woman did, because there is no evidence for it.
Right, but I'm not talking about the specific act, like deeds that are going on, just the mere existence of people. Like, for example, there's the talk about the debate on whether or not who exactly was the Jesus talked about within the New Testament. Like the Jesus Seminar scholars that like Bart Ehrman, Dominic Crossan have like different theories of what Jesus actually was and did versus what the New Testament said, but they would still affirm an existence of Jesus. And so there could be similar theories on regards to Adam, at least as far as I'm aware.
I just don't accept that there was a specific person called Adam who was the first man, and a specific woman who was called Eve who was the first woman, and that both were created, one from dust and one from a rib. Don't believe it.
What do you believe?
I'd
How
like
did
to
it
welcome
happen?
SJ as well. Welcome, SJ.
Sorry, Winter Sunshine, if you don't mind, I don't know if I've ever heard your view on how you think things started. I wouldn't mind hearing it.
Oh, yeah, you cut out slightly, but hi, welcome. If there's anything you want to contribute, please just try and find the right space and jump in.
Oh, I just want to say that there are a number of different ways to interpret Genesis, and Christians have come up with a number of different ways to look at the first chapters, the first 11 chapters of Genesis, to try to figure out what God's message is there. And so there are some different approaches, and one of them is Hugh Ross's approach, where he takes a literal Adam and Eve showed up, and he's also an old earth creationist or an evolutionary theist. And then there's other approaches that some people say it's metaphoric. That tends to be more liberal approach. And then there's a more conservative approach where people will say there's Adam and Eve and they came 6,000 years ago. And I think that is a minority of, small minority of Christians who take the young earth creationist approach.
I don't know. I would say those are the only true Christians.
I wanted to ask Brett a question.
Oh.
He
Brett,
said tongue in cheek.
Brett, you there?
Yeah, I was hearing you. You'd said that you didn't have a view towards Adam and Eve. I was curious what your
Oh
thoughts
no,
were.
I said I did have a view towards Adam and Eve. But no, I wanted
Well,
to
that's
ask
what
you.
I'm asking. You seem like you didn't think that actual Adam and Eve existed. I was curious what your thoughts were.
Yeah, that I don't think there was a specific Adam and a specific Eve that were created as described in Genesis. I don't believe that. But I wanted to ask you a question. You earlier on you were talking about evolution, and what I wanted to know from you was, what is it that you mean when you use the word evolution?
Well,
You're talking to
obviously,
me?
it sounds like Winter Sunshine's asking me. Are you able to hear me say S.J. Thomason? Hello? Winter, seems like some people
We
can't
can
hear
hear
me.
you. We can hear you.
All right. Well, Reformed. What about you, S.J.? Can you hear me? Give me a call out. That's going to be a problem.
Okay.
All right. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me now, S.J.?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. I reloaded just for you. It seemed like we were not hearing each other. That sucked.
I can definitely hear you now. I don't know if you can hear me. Fine, but
Yeah, you come through very clear. Very nice microphone. No headaches there. So Winter Sunshine apparently asked me what is my thoughts on evolution, or what do I think about it? Well,
No,
from what I
asked
get
you,
from...
what do you mean when you use the word evolution?
Well, obviously, whenever the atheist or whoever is accepting of evolution, they're stating that they came from many different creatures, a gradual change over time. It depends on if we're getting into macro or micro evolution.
Okay,
Right. So what do you mean?
May
though?
I?
It's the paint.
Well, if you're wondering, I'm not convinced that I come from a fish. That's I thought
Is that what you mean by evolution? That you came from fish? Because that's not a typical definition of evolution.
I don't agree with a lot of that, and it's obvious it's not something that's observed. People are just going along with this.
You think we believe we observe people coming from fish?
Ever seen any kind of a creature like that I could claim is actually an ancestor of human? I mean, if you can show me evidence that we came from fish, I'm all ears.
Okay, if nobody minds me continuing what I was asking. I mean, I know I'm a women's, but hey ho. So evolution to you is what the biologists mean by common descent, not what they mean by evolution. You realise that?
I realize what evolution is defined as.
Okay, on you go.
Yeah, so basically your issue is with some specific aspect of common ancestry, right, Brett?
So
yeah, I got no hate towards it or anything like that. I just find some of the claims of it unusual, and I don't see any good evidence for it.
Okay, here's the claim that the claim evolution makes. There are two things you have to bear in mind. There's evolution, and there's the theory of evolution. Evolution is a biological process. It happens to populations, and it's defined as a change in allele frequencies within a population over time. We observe it happening and we study it happening. The theory of evolution is the explanation as to how the process of evolution comes about within a population.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's it. That's all it is.
Yeah, theory is usually to explain a body of facts that's given, such as when there's germ theory and gravitational theory, while there's at the same time different like law, and then there's theory on the aspects. I had to explain this one time to an atheist at in Arkansas while we were out street preaching. He kept saying that a theory is just a theory, and so when I'm talking about like germ theory, it's like germ theory and a theory, it's a fact. Germ theory is stupid. And it's like, no, and I had to explain that whole thing. That theory is.
This is a discussion with an atheist. Did that? Wow, there's some dumb atheists out there.
Yeah, I don't get where some of the other folks are going with it in the room. It's obvious that it is claimed in evolution that people came from fish.
No,
This is
that's
what they
common
say.
descent. That's common. That is common
That is
descent.
claimed one of the organisms or creatures that they were prior to becoming a human being. I mean, it's pretty
that's
obvious. I don't know why people are acting silly about it.
That's common
Yeah,
descent.
Brett, are you hearing what Fiona's saying? Can you hear Fiona? Maybe Fiona, check your mic. Maybe he can't hear you.
He can't hear me over the gabbling over the top of me, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to make sure. Brett, you can hear her, right?
I can hear her just fine.
Oh, you can hear her fine because what you said contradicts what she explained.
I just don't care for the silly game of, Christians don't understand evolution or science.
Well, she didn't say that.
I'm not all for that nonsense.
She didn't say that.
I asked you guys if you believe you came from fish. You answered the question. Yes, you do.
Brett, she is a Christian, so it'd be weird if she said that you don't understand.
Right.
Right. I was going to say, Brett,
I think the jury's still out on that, though.
Brett, I was going to say, I am a Christian. I'm not an atheist.
Oh, sure, Winter. Sure.
So every time you say about what the atheists say about evolution, after I've said something, it means nothing. All I'm trying to do...
Winter Sunshine, you got to understand, I've had countless atheists come into my live rooms and pretend to be a Christian just so they could troll or get some negative things. I don't know you very well. I don't know what your deal is. I
know her very well. If I may, Brett, I've known her for about Brett, you do know me. You were on my show a few times. And I've known Fiona for a very long time, and she is very definitely a Christian.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that I'm going to go along with that. I don't know what I'm dealing with.
Oh, why not? Just out of charity. You just be charitable and assume she's not lying.
Okay, Brett. Okay, Brett. That's fine. That's fine. You can doubt that I'm a Christian. We spoke way back 2013, 2014, and all the rest of it. We spoke way back then, and we spoke about my faith, and you don't remember me. That's fine. But I'm just telling you, I am a Christian. We started this live stream with me talking about my faith. But you don't have to accept that. You can deny that I'm a Christian. But the point is, what I'm saying, all I'm doing is giving you the definitions of these words. And those definitions don't matter whether it doesn't matter whether I'm a Christian or an agnostic or an atheist. Evolution is a biological process. We observe it and we study it. And it's simply defined as that change in allele frequencies within a population over time. And the theory of evolution describes the mechanism by which the process comes about. Natural selection acting upon genetic variation within a population. Now, it doesn't matter that if that's coming out the mouth of an atheist or a Christian. That's the definitions. But you keep talking about common descent when you talk about evolution. What you're describing.
Winter, are you trying to say that evolution wasn't required in order for a person to come from a damn primate or fish or a shrew?
No.
Actually, that sentence you just said, Brett, actually doesn't make any sense at all.
And also humans are primates, but that's beside the point. No,
the problem is that I've actually got video footage of Richard Dawkins himself saying a completely different thing.
I'm not trying to say anything. I'm saying exactly what I mean here. I'm just saying you need to be precise with your terminology because it causes utter confusion. If you say that your objection to evolution is X, and then you list something that is actually to do with common descent, then all that does is sow confusion.
Well, I don't see how it causes confusion if Richard Dawkins, the premier atheist, the Pope of atheism, says he believes that he comes from it. When he claims that everybody came from a fucking fish, that's pretty clear to me.
Let me just because this is the
Dawkins was taught about us coming from a fish.
JD, hold on. Here's the thing that I find disingenuous about this whole thing. When you do that, because then everyone's going to agree with Richard Dawkins. I see atheists by the majority on Twitter saying Richard Dawkins needs to keep his mouth shut on this certain particular thing that he speaks about, and so he's not a premier atheist. Like for me, that's like if everything that you're saying, my response would have to be, well, William Lane Craig believes this, so I'm going to assume every single little thing that he says and believes is exactly what Brett Keane affirms, or what Inspiring Philosophy says and affirms is what Brett Keane affirms and says. But that is not going to be possible. I know that there's probably going to be disagreements that you would have with, say, Craig or with Mike from Inspiring Philosophy. And I would rather focus on what the individual that I'm addressing, who is Brett Keane, is actually affirming.
I understand what you're saying, Reformed, but I mean, and this may offend some people, but who am I going to listen to? Richard Dawkins, who's actually a professional, or some fucking people in a Discord chat? It seems
well, you're not talking to Richard Dawkins. Actually, Fiona has the same edge. Actually, I would suspect that Fiona knows a bit more about evolution than Richard Dawkins, given, she has quite a bit of history. Well, Richard Dawkins is a zoologist, and he does understand evolution enough that, for a layman. But if I remember correctly, Fiona, you were a molecular biologist at the end and training in. Yeah. You could explain your bio better than I can.
I want to say something to you real quick, Winter.
Okay,
I want to say well, hold on, Winter. Let me say something. I like the idea that all the atheists in the room actually think that you as a Christian is more intelligent than their atheist guy. That's great. Go ahead.
I don't think anyone said that.
No, I don't think anybody said that, but here's the point.
But you said that she is probably smarter than Richard Dawkins. You said it. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I'm personally not a Richard Dawkins fan. That's neither here nor there.
At this point, I'm beginning to really feel like the women's can't talk. Now, please, number one, Richard Dawkins does have qualifications, okay? And they're probably better than mine. They're probably more relevant than mine, okay? But, yeah, I was a professional until I retired. But I was a professional. Now, I'm not doing that to say, listen to me, an argument from authority. What I'm saying is that don't just dismiss things that people are saying by trying to say, you don't know enough about this. Because from where I'm sitting, if you can't get the basic definitions right, then you don't get to tell me that I don't know enough about the subject. This is one of the things that I think we have to accept, that if we want to go into the realms of biology, we have to be using the terminology from that field, or we cause confusion. You cannot say, well, the biologist said that, and then use a word in a context that they didn't use it in, because that means that therefore they did not say that. So you've got to make an effort to understand what the biologists mean when they use that terminology, if you want to understand what it is they were actually saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do remember you, Fiona. I remember what you're about.
But that's not a response to the question sheet.
I also know who you are too, Reformed, and I'm not going to be trolled by some fake ass bullshit.
I'm not a troll and I'm not fake. You can even ask SJ here.
I'm sure the atheist will vouch for you and stuff.
SJ's a Christian. SJ's a Christian, dude.
No, Brett. I've been on Brett's channel before.
I've seen the videos and I've heard the rhetoric. I know.
All right, Brett. If you're uncomfortable, honestly, Brett, if you're uncomfortable with any of these questions or have trouble with the answers, it's okay if you need to bow out. There are other people who will continue the conversation. It's okay.
Sure, you guys can talk about evolving from a fish. That's fine with me.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that. Actually, what is your issue with the concept?
He's not here anymore.
Oh, did Brett leave?
Yeah, and plus he could have asked Veckel. I know he hangs out with Veckel, and Veckel vouches for me highly as an apologist. So I don't know where he's getting this idea that I'm a fake Christian atheist.
I'd vouch for you too, RC.
Yeah, I'm fine going down his rabbit hole and like, okay, well, let's talk about coming from a fish. What is your issue with that? You don't observe it. Well, you're not you to work in biology. I wouldn't expect you to know much of anything about this stuff. But why do you think the professionals have got it all wrong? Well, then I'm not getting any answers on that, of course.
Yeah.
Well, see, the interesting thing that I found in that, and it's what I was trying to get to, is that as soon as you start saying something like, here is the definition of evolution, here is the definition of the theory of evolution, bang, you're an atheist. You can't really be a Christian. You're not believed. That's the point I was trying to make.
Well, Fiona, you are functionally atheist, and then what's Liquid say?
I think that point has just been made for me very beautifully. Because if you do not agree, you're no longer considered a real Christian. You see, that's it. I am not a true Scotswoman. It's interesting that. It's really interesting.